Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Tiffany Hunter, an energy healer in the United States, and welcome to Life Made Easier. This is a podcast where we explore how energy, emotions, and awareness influence everyday life. Every week, we have a practical conversation about energy healing and the small shifts that can make a real difference in your life. We explore how understanding energy can help you navigate relationships, manage stress, clear decisions, make a good cup of tea. Okay, I just made that last one up. Our goal is really simple. We want you to become more aware of your own energy and the energy around you so that your life can get, well, easier and calmer.
And I'm Dr. Karen Janes, a psychologist and energy healer in the UK. If you're a regular listener of our Life Made Easier podcast, you'll know that we have spent quite a bit of time talking about the aura in other episodes. And we realized, well, actually, our producer realized that whilst we'd been great at mentioning it a lot and even telling you that it's important that you keep it clean and mentioning a couple of things you can use to do that, we hadn't actually done a very good job of really talking you through that and giving you proper practical suggestions for how to clean your aura and explain really why it's important. So as we were musing over this, we decided that might make sense to do a 3-part series. Are you ready? So today is going to be what is the aura and a bit about why do we need to bother thinking about cleaning it. Next week is going to be how do you clean it, and a very practical literally talking you through some techniques for doing that. And then the third in the series is going to be how do we protect it and what does that even mean and why is it important? So stay tuned. Yeah, so this is going to be a bit theoretical today, but we thought it's been a while since we've really done an episode about the aura. So we
That's
thought
true.
let's start there today and set the scene for specifically thinking about cleaning it. So Tiffany, what is an aura? Can you give us a short and concise recap of for those people who may have missed or can't remember the
Yeah,
previous
I
information?
was feeling very confident until you said concise.
Keep it
I think
snappy.
you may have gotten to the nub of the problem. Um, okay, what is an aura? So an aura is an energy organ of the energy anatomy in the human body. And just like we have a physical anatomy, we have an energetic corresponding. Some of those things are directly corresponding to the physical body. For example, the meridian lines that move chi from point A to point B are very, very similar and connected to the cardiovascular system that moves blood from point A to point B. The aura is an organ that has a job to do, just like the cardiovascular system or your elbow, and it is corresponds to the skin of the physical body. So it's really the barrier between the world of energy and outside and the world of energy inside. So if I was to draw it, I would draw it as a bubble around the body. It emanates from all living things, and it keeps things out and it allows things through. It's semi-porous, and it also works as a sense organ. It can feel things. When you feel things around your environment, you are mostly doing that with your aura. That wasn't very concise, was it? I tried. I really tried.
I think that wasn't bad, actually. I think that wasn't too bad. So, as you say, it's like a sense organ. It serves a very similar function to the skin, and the when it's healthy and isn't having any problems, it does that really good job. You mentioned semi-porous. So our skin is semi-porous. It lets some things absorb into our body through our skin, but not everything. And on the whole, it does a fairly good job of knowing what to let through and what not. Occasionally that goes wrong, or some, a toxin gets passed or something. And equally, it's quite good at letting stuff out that we want it to let out, for example, sweat and toxin release, and not letting out your blood or your tissues or all of that kind of thing. So the aura works very similarly. There is, I also like to think of it as kind of, it's like our edge. It's like the edge of us, the outside edge of us in the world. And part of developing your energy intelligence is becoming aware that you don't end at your skin. In fact, your being, if you like, extends a bit beyond the boundary of your physical body. And I'm sure anyone who's listened to previous episodes will have heard us say this before, but commonly, if you've ever had that experience of someone looking at you from across the room and the back of your neck prickles and you turn your head and someone's looking at you and you had no other way of knowing they were looking at you, a part of their energy has registered in your aura, so you've kind of felt that. Equally, when someone stands very close to you, you start to kind of become aware of them before they're touching you. You can kind of feel them sometimes, and that can be nice or not so nice. So that begs the question, how big is our aura?
Oh, it begs so many questions. So many questions are now hovering around my head.
And another important thing to note as we're answering the question, I think, about how big is my aura, does my aura look big in this, is does it change size? And the answer to that is yes, it does. And it tends to change size. Now I'm even questioning my own thought about this. I was going to say mostly in response, well, to our environment and to our emotional state. So when we're anxious or stressed or worried, it tends to shrink in very close to our body. Imagine standing on a crowded underground or subway train and you feel a bit closed in and you want your energy filled in really close. You might physically almost try and make yourself a bit smaller. I'm just huddled into my seat. And the same will be happening with your energy. And when you're relaxed, comfortable, happy, not worrying about anything, and probably particularly when you're in nature or at home, somewhere you feel comfortable and safe, it will just gently expand out. And then it's like you have a bit more space around you that is you.
I think you touch on something I think that's interesting about auras and how different people see the aura, and often how different other people see the aura differently than we do, because we are very much energy healers that look at healing and energy anatomy as part of healthcare, and other people will have a different slant on that. And I've heard in a number of contexts people say things like, oh, they had such a large aura, right? And the bigness of somebody's aura, this massive aura, as being an indication of their spiritual strength or their, I don't know, something positive, as if it's indicative of something positive. And that's not how we see it.
Yeah, it's more a reflection of how you're feeling.
Right.
I would say.
Yeah. And I do think there are people who walk in a room and have a big presence.
Yeah.
But it's not the aura that's creating that subjective experience of them. The aura is really, it's an organ, it's an energy organ, and it, as I said, it has a job to do.
And equally,
and it's not to make you look charismatic or impressive. That's not its job.
Yeah, I know, because I was going to say it's actually it serves a really important function. We want it to be able to change size. We want it to be able to draw in close to us when we're in a position where we want to protect our energy a bit more, when we don't want to be letting our aura mingle with everybody around us because it's really crowded, when we're anxious, the same way. I mean, you mentioned the cardiovascular system, when we start to feel under threat, our body starts kind of going, okay, where do I need to put the blood supply and the oxygen to maximize survival? So our aura doesn't need to be all big and floaty. It needs to be in tight to help us focus and be protected while we work out if we are actually in danger and what do we need to do about it.
Yeah. And I would argue that if you're walking into a crowded room, everybody's aura, if it's working well, will diminish. It will protectively constrict to get closer to the body, because when it gets closer to the body, it gets more dense. And when it's more dense, it is less porous, which means less will come into the system. So in situations where you're surrounded by people that are maybe sketchy, or an environment you're not sure of, or just the self-consciousness of being stared at, will bring your aura close to you as a protective system. And people who say things like, I'm too sensitive to go into crowds, it's often an imbalance in the health of the aura. It's not constricting well. Or if it is, it's not, there's a reasons why it's not working well enough. It's not being protective enough.
Which actually makes me think perhaps it's worth just noting here that drugs and alcohol and some medications will also impact both the health of your aura and how tight in or relaxed out is, and its capacity to move in that healthy way. So to take alcohol as an example, that tends to open out the aura, and that's why sometimes you can, if you're around a load of people who are drinking a lot, often at the beginning of the evening it's quite jolly, and then everybody's aura starts opening up, and all this, anything they've got sitting in it can sort of be nearer the surface, and then you might reach a tipping point where people can end up very emotional or aggressive, violent, so that's part of why, not the only reason, but part of why that can happen is because alcohol opens our aura out in a really uncontrolled kind of way, and the more alcohol you drink, the more that happens generally. Yeah.
It's also why it's relaxing, at least in the beginning. I mean, partly it's a muscle relaxant, right? So physically it's relaxing the muscles, but energetically it's also relaxing. It's a muscle relaxant and an energetic relaxant because it forces the aura to open a little bit for people that have trouble with that. It forces the muscles to relax, it forces the aura to relax, and then everything sort of exhales. I just, while you were talking, I glanced down at our notes about who else has an aura: animals, plants, trees, fish. And I was thinking to myself, I know a lot about dogs, and I know that dogs' auras change the way that ours do. I assume horses do. You would know more about that than I do. But a fish?
Yeah, I always kind of feeling less certain about what happens with a fish. Like mammals, I feel like more or
Yeah.
less it's similar. But yeah, when you start getting into fish, and I mean birds, I think are kind of,
Birds for sure. Yeah. Although
yeah,
I'm somebody who's owned parrots, and I can say that the aura does actually work the same, but it's less. I think there's similarities between the variability in a dog and a person. Birds' auras are much less variable. They don't constrict and open as much as a humans do. Yeah.
I think we need to go study some fish and find out. I don't know anybody who has fish.
Yeah. Or reptiles, like fish
Yeah,
and reptiles.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that much. I've never been so humbled as a healer than when I had my first dog years and years ago, and realized how little I knew about the canine energy system and had to learn. First time
Yeah.
my dog got sick.
So, do we need to? We're talking about it as though we have a really good sense of what auras are like, and I'm aware that most of our audience may not feel that. I mean, most people have probably heard of auras and maybe have some vague sense about what they are, but their experience of them is likely to be very different to ours as energy healers, and we've been
Sure.
doing this a long
I mean,
time.
and talking about trying to understand your own aura is the very definition of fish in water. I mean, since the day that we were conceived, literally the day that we were conceived, we were sitting in aura.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a cell, you've got an aura.
Yeah, so I'm
So it's
wondering.
hard. It's hard to get people to feel that.
Yeah, and so would you say, I know again we've talked in other podcast episodes about our own experiences and that we don't really see auras with our visual eyes. And I think people who really do experience auras in that way are quite rare, unfortunately, because it always, it's a question we get asked a lot, do you see auras? And it always sounds like a really exciting, fun thing to be able to do, and I would kind of quite like to be able to, but I don't really see auras in any visual way with my physical eyes. I have a kind of a visual impression maybe in my head that's
Sure.
created through what I experience of someone else's aura or my own aura through my aura, really. My sense organ, the sense organ that is my aura, connects or is able to sense stuff about someone else's aura. But again, that's a skill which, you know, you and I think have developed over many years doing the kind of work that we do. And so for somebody who's just starting out, what happens if you don't really, if you can't see your own aura, if you can't really feel auras? Does this have anything to do, would you say, with someone's ability to clean it or to look after it?
Deep, long silence on a audio podcast. I think it's challenging, which is why. And it wasn't just Carol that asked us to be more specific. We got 2 comments. I wish I could remember your names, guys. I'm sorry. On our feedback about that too, from listeners asking us to give more how-tos. I think this is what we're up against, especially because nobody's in front of us. And so if somebody was in front of us, we could track what they're doing and then say, you know, a little to the left, a little to the right. It's really hard to do that over even video.
Yeah.
I think the simple truth is, and I'm going to say this, and it's an emotionally charged thing to say, given the field, the occupation that we're in. I'm going to say that I think the best thing to do is to start as if. Like, if you can just accept that you have an aura as truth, even just to begin with, don't feel like you have to convince yourself something is snake oil or push your belief system in a certain direction. But if you can just act as if you have one and then try some practical experiences that we're going to, you know, that we've been talking about and will be talking about, and then see for yourself, because it is really hard to feel something that you've never stopped feeling, that you can't, I can't create a situation where somebody doesn't have an aura to feel, right? It's, you know, it's kind of like trying to feel the inside of your fingers, right? Like it's hard, right? But if you can accept you have one, then you can go into different situations, and see the changes. So because really the path forward is not to see with an aura and without an aura. It's to see an aura constricted and to feel your aura unconstricted, right? It's to go into a room. We did this recently because we're doing something at my office called Living Lab, which is a group of people are getting together and doing some of these practical activities that we've been talking about on air. And so for the aura one, a bunch of people walked into a room and watched the most disgusting videos of people, like pimple popper, like gross vet things, terrible, horrible things. Went into a room and watched the videos, but didn't tell the other half of the group what they were watching. And then the other group went in to see what it felt like.
Right.
And then we did it again with like cute puppy videos. So
kind
that's
of like, can you pick up how someone's aura seems different before?
Yeah.
After
Yeah. And we also did it back to back, like up against each other's back, where like one person's watching a video and the other person's feeling what it feels like to sit in somebody else's aura when they're watching puppies or watching disgustingness. And that was, to my absolute relief, because I wasn't sure how it was going to go, incredibly successful.
Wow.
Like, people just instantly got it. And it was so interesting. There were 2 pairs in the room that didn't get it, that had trouble with it, with the disgusting one. And both of them, it turned out that because the people watching it were nurses.
Oh, so they had less reaction.
They just weren't really reactive to it. Yeah. And that as well was just really fascinating. So I think that's the way forward, is you kind of have to just live a life and put your body in different situations that you can then pay attention to.
Well, the other thing that occurs to me is through the process of beginning to get to grips with cleaning your aura and trying different ways to do that, I think that in itself becomes, makes it easier to start feeling it and being aware of it. I can't think of a better example right now, but off the top of my head, windows, if windows have got really dirty, you often don't realize because it kind of happens over time. Or your glasses, you've just taken your glasses off.
Clean them, that's true.
And then suddenly you're like, it's really dark in here and I can't see very well. And then you start to clean them and you're like, wow, okay, I hadn't realized how dirty that was. And I think your aura can be a bit like that. We're just used to stuff being in it. And it can be harder then to really feel it. So if we can just start the process, as you said, act as if, start working through some of the exercises we give you next week, and then start to see whether you feel different. And you can do experiments, I mean, a bit like you're describing, but for example, you could do one of the practical things to clean your aura and, go somewhere before you did that and then go somewhere after you did that. Like, I don't know, stand next to your dog or go into a different room or whatever and see, does this feel different now? And that those testing those things out can help you start to, okay, it is, or how close can I get to somebody before I start to sort of feel aware of them, that, oh, that must be the edge of my aura and the edge of their aura. So I think it's through the act of trying some of these things that we're going to talk more about, that will help you to also then start to feel it more, which will also then make you better at cleaning it.
Right. And also just to remind people, for those of you that are Patreon members, thank you all so much for your support.
Yes, thank you.
We give out a monthly member packet for Patreon that has, every time, it has journal prompts, it has affirmations, but one of the things it always has is energy experiments, and they're created with the idea that you don't have other people around you, so you can do these things at home. So just to know that is available to everybody if you want to get, and for every single podcast we've created practical experiments that you can use at home to test some of these things out by yourself, by walking around the world or just walking around your living room.
So maybe we should talk a bit about why we need to clean our aura. I mean, we've kind of touched on it, but and whether it is something we actively need to do. And again, I think it's helpful perhaps to think about our skin in this respect. Now, our skin does a reasonable job to a degree of kind of keeping itself clean and healthy.
Yeah, I think technically speaking, it's a self-cleansing organ.
Yeah, but at the same time, we know that because of the environment we live in, it's helpful to do various things to keep our skin clean, and sometimes we might need to do that more than others. If you've been,
I say technically because I think it's a ridiculous idea that it doesn't have to be clean in our actual world that we live in.
Yeah, so we know that, if you go to the beach and go swim in the sea, you come home with salty skin, and maybe you put some sunscreen on, so you really want to have a shower when you get home, or you're out working in the garden all day and you're covered in dust or mud or whatever. So we know that, and if we actually injure our skin, then we need to take even more care to keep it clean and to look after it. And as we change through life, like for any woman who's ever hit the menopause stage of life will know that more moisturizer is probably required. And, as we age, our skin changes a bit and maybe become more delicate and fragile for very elderly people. So we may need to take more care at different times, depending on what we're doing, who we're around, where we're around, because the energy of the world, whilst we talked about it being semi-permeable, it does do a reasonable job. It does still absorb stuff from our environment, from the world around us. It's not completely closed off to that.
Yeah, and that's going to be absorption of the energy of the world and the energy of the people around us, and as well as stuff coming from the inside. If we're sitting down and our little monkey mind is going off on some self-hatred tirade, all of those emotions that are coming up are pouring into our aura from the inside. And without cleaning it, we're kind of sitting in dirty diapers and then
Yes.
wondering why we feel worse.
So it's important to, I think that people use that phrase wallowing in something, like, oh, I'm wallowing in your misery or something. But I think
Yeah.
there's actually an energetic kind of truth to that, because if that stuff is pouring out but is getting stuck in our aura, we're on a kind of feedback loop, or we're being surrounded. So it can sometimes feel like it's really hard to sort of break that cycle, because you literally sat in that energy that isn't very helpful to you. So sometimes just doing one of the techniques to clean your aura can go, oh, okay, now I feel a bit better. It hasn't changed the situation you're upset about, but it may
Hmm.
help you look at it in a different way, or feel more able to tackle it, or
Well,
just,
and certainly bring the volume down,
yeah, yeah.
right? So self-hatred 2 as opposed to self-hatred DEFCON 8, right?
Do you think anyone can clean their aura?
I
Can
do
learn
think
to?
anybody can clean their aura. Yeah, I do. I do. I think and obviously we'll get into this next week more, but the biggest difficulty with cleaning your aura is that you can't clean it with your mind, you have to clean it with your body
But you kind of have to use your mind to
to tell your
guide
body
you,
what to
which is,
do.
again, I think
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons we were kind of grappling a bit with this, the actual practical part, which we'll come more to next week, is that it's easier when you're sat in a room with somebody to guide them through how to really connect in, because we often use some kind of mental visualization or imagery or something like that, which is a sort of a helpful tool, but doesn't work by itself. We can't just do a little mental visualization of, I'm just cleansing my energy,
Right.
and really
It's not
expect.
the visualization that does it. It's
Yeah,
the
we might feel a
visualization that
tiny,
triggers the body doing it.
yeah, we might feel a tiny bit
Yeah.
more relaxed, but we're not really going to make any significant difference to
Yeah.
the stuff that's sat in our aura.
Well,
So
but sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to
no.
interrupt you.
So I was going to say, so one of the things we will talk a little bit more is how can we try and work with that to the best of our ability in a podcast, which isn't one to one and isn't in real time, but we'll do our best to give you some ways that you can really try and work on that. And I think you will need to work on it. This is not something that you can do
Oh, for
once or
sure.
twice and then go, oh, okay, I got that. I feel better. That's easy. It's
Okay, but
something.
here's the other thing to really know about that is that that also means that you can't hold a crystal and have it clean your aura,
Right.
right? Crystals are not they do generate an energy field, although it's remarkably low. Like, science will tell us it's a
Mhm.
very low emanating field. Um, it's not a good tool to clean an aura. It's not actively acting on the body in that way. And equally, there's no jewelry that you can wear that will protect your aura, right? You can't be wearing jewelry that's going to stop other things. Like, I have an image in my head of like Wonder Woman with her wrists, battling off
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
things that, yeah, that come up and shooting them back out. That's not going to work either. Cleaning your aura is actually, it's one of those great examples of it's incredibly simple, which is not the same thing as easy,
Mm.
right? Your body has to do it, right? Like if I want to make noise, my vocal cords have to do it,
Hmm.
right? Your body has to clean its own aura. And then the question really becomes, how do we recognize when we need that so that we can activate the vocal cords, right? So we can activate it, we can ask the body to do it. And and can we do it at will, conscious will? That's the thing.
Although, to slightly different to your example of the vocal cords, we can clean other people's auras, which raises the question, should we? So having learned to clean your own aura, I mean, in actual fact, it may be even easier to learn to clean someone else's than your own because they're outside of you. So it can feel easier for some people to kind of tune into that and feel it. But it's generally something that would only be taught as a very specific healing technique rather than something
Yeah, and I wouldn't recommend it.
yeah.
It's
With
I really liked what you said about understanding what can happen when people are drinking or
mm,
recreationally drugging, and how that relates to the aura, and understanding how we all like, because like the whole point of this podcast, including this episode, is to understand how we work better. And without understanding the energetic piece, we're really missing a whole chapter to the manual, right?
mm,
And so really, I loved what you said about how when we do drink, the aura relaxes, things that have been held tight come out, people start feeling things, people start dumping things on other people, people start picking up things from other people. That can happen when you clean your aura. You know, you can have an emotional reaction to the presence of what's there and then the presence of what's not there, and taking that level of responsibility for other people shouldn't be done lightly.
yeah, and absolutely should only ever be done with very explicit consent, and usually only in a very kind of professional energy healing capacity, not, with your friend or your partner because you'd like their aura to be cleaner than it is or whatever. Try and have send them this podcast episode so they can learn how to do their own. That's a much easier and more sensible way to do that. But by spending more time cleaning your own aura and becoming more aware of your own aura, which is really going to be key to the whole kind of point of our podcast, really, which is helping you build your energy intelligence. Because the cleaner and the more sensitive your aura becomes, or the more tuned into your aura, not more sensitive, the more tuned in you become to your aura and what it's picking up and how it is, the more you will be able to do any of the other things we talk about and become more aware of what's happening in you and what's happening in the energy of the world around you, either specific to where you are right now or the planet or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the point, and where perhaps we didn't do such a great job, because it's a hard job to do, which is that being having a well maintained aura is really one of the foundational pieces of existing. It really is that, and a Reiki attunement. And so I think in that way we have talked about it a lot, and we put emphasis and weight on it, but haven't done such a great job explaining the other half, because the other half being, okay, well, how do I actually do that? Because it's just harder.
Yeah.
I was thinking about something else too, just in that way of like trying to do a better job with that, of giving people a sense of what does it mean to really accept you have one, and really change your ideas about yourself, that you don't end at your skin, you end a few feet away from yourself, and what it feels like to just walk around accepting that. Like you just taking up more space. You take up more space. And I think for most people that make that, it's a mental transition, right? It's a body experience for sure. Where do I end? You know, can I close my eyes and touch my nose with my finger? Well, it depends if what my proprioception is, and all the other things of like, do I know where I end and how I move through space? It's changing that. It's accepting that my body doesn't actually end at my skin, and then accommodating my day-to-day life accordingly.
Yeah, and the other bit I wanted to just, because you mentioned it very briefly, but I think it's worth making it a bit more explicit, is what you said about you can have an emotional response to cleaning your aura, when in the same way you can when it's kind of artificially opened out with alcohol. And ultimately I think that's a good thing, but if you've been holding some leftover energy from a difficult emotional experience you've had, and then you start cleaning that out, feeling some of that as it releases, and then feeling how you feel afterwards and all of that stuff can be a bit you feel a bit wobbly sometimes and quite emotional, usually very temporarily. And then I think this is a really good example of one of those things where if you can just stay with it, keep going and breathe and allow yourself to feel whatever you feel and try not to judge it, that usually my experience is people feel much better quite quickly, because it's not really something you're feeling right now. It's something which has just been hanging around. Like you know, you got really muddy in the garden, you get in the shower, and it's not like your skin is stained. You just, and you see the water washing over you, and suddenly it's like it's your skin color again. And
Mhm.
there's a very noticeable kind of difference. But I think it is important that people are aware that, you know, if you have a lot going on, you know, don't do it when you're in the office at work. Do it like, you know, when you've got a bit of space at home, somewhere you feel safe and comfortable, and maybe you've got a little bit of support if you
Right.
know
Well,
stuff going.
and yeah, until you feel confident doing it, at least.
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing you make me realize that we have keep talking about but haven't stated explicitly is that the skin gets dirty with physical gunk and the
Hmm.
aura gets dirty with emotional gunk,
An energetic
which
gunk.
sounds so obvious. Energetic gunk, right? And the energetic gunk includes, like, because the thing about an emotion is that it has the mental side, which is the memory, but it has the energetic side, which is the charge, which
Hmm.
is why you can think about an experience from your past and you get that kind of flinch because you remember it and that energetic charge is still there, so you kind of flinch. But in time the energetic charge will fade and you'll just have the memory. Well, that's not going to be in your aura, right? The memory isn't going to be in your aura. It's the energetic charge of the emotion that's still good. That's energy that gets trapped in the aura. And so if it's you're so you really, which is also why it's a sense organ. You know, it's also why when I'm sitting in front of a person or a dog, probably not a fish, I can feel, I can, my aura is feeling what they're feeling, right? Because that's the aura is picking up, holding, storing, sensitive to, tracking the emotional energy around me in the same way that my skin is picking up the dust and the dirt and the pollution and stuff like that. So that might be helpful information to to be really explicit about. That's why we keep saying when you're sitting in that and it's you're feeling that from yourself and you're feeling that from the world around you, and that's how you're feeling it. That's the organ that's being used to pick all that stuff up.
So hopefully that gives you a good summary of what exactly is the aura, why does it get dirty, and why do we need to clean it. And we promise faithfully that next episode we will literally talk you through how to do, so how, you know, how to start learning how to look after your aura better
Yeah.
in this respect, because most of us have been looking after our skin, our physical body, for since we were very young. We started getting taught, most of us, by our parents how to brush our teeth and take baths and showers and all that stuff, and nobody mentions looking after our aura. I mean, we have often said over the years they should teach this in schools, what a difference that would make to the world.
Oh,
But
yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
project for another lifetime.
Check for another lifetime. Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. Check in next week. We'll keep talking, and as she said, we promise to get super practical. And thank you again to everybody who's supporting us on Patreon. Please tell other people exist. We're trying to build. We're trying to stay here. We're trying to keep going and stay well.
See you next time.